The clouds hung low over Chicago that afternoon, heavy, gray, like the sky itself hadn't made up its mind about whether to cry or not. Nathan Cole sat alone on a park bench, a paper cup of untouched coffee cooling beside him. His phone was off, his driver dismissed, and for the first time in years, he had nowhere to be. This was the man people called the ghost billionaire. Founder of one of the biggest tech companies in the country. A genius to some, a heartless machine to others. But today, he was just a man sitting in silence. He didn't look up when a voice broke through the quiet. "Are you nice?" Nathan blinked, turning his head. In front of him stood a little girl, maybe 6 years old, staring at him with a seriousness that didn't match her age. Her pink hoodie was too thin for the weather. Her backpack had a cartoon character on it, and one strap was torn. "What did you say?" Nathan asked softly. "I said, are you nice?" No one had asked Nathan that in years. Maybe ever. He tilted his head, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Depends on the day," he said. "Today's day, I guess." The girl nodded as if she'd just conducted an interview. Then she took a deep breath, like she was about to do something brave. "Sir, could you be my daddy? Just for one day?" Nathan froze. His hand twitched on the coffee cup. "I'm sorry, what?" "My school has a thing tomorrow," she said quickly. "A Father's Day event. All the kids bring their dads. They clap, they take pictures, they cheer when you say your part. My teacher said it's okay if you don't have one, but it's not really okay." Her eyes dropped to her shoes. "I just don't want to be the only one sitting alone." And that was it, a punch right to the chest. No manipulation. No act. Just honesty, raw and innocent. Nathan leaned back slowly. "Where's your mom?" he asked carefully. The girl pointed toward a small diner across the street. "She's working. I saw you from the window. You looked like you were waiting for somebody." He gave a small chuckle. "And you thought maybe it was you?" She nodded. "Yeah. You look like someone who could clap loud." He looked at her, really looked. A kid standing in the cold, asking for something so small, and yet, something he hadn't heard in years. "Be there for me." "What's your name?" he asked. "Sophie," she said proudly. "Sophie Brooks." "Well, Sophie Brooks," he said, pretending to think hard. "Being someone's dad is kind of a big job." "You don't have to do the big parts," she said quickly. "Just sit in the audience and clap when I'm done. That's it." Nathan rubbed his chin, fighting a smile. "And if I do? Then you get a sticker. And maybe a hug. If you want one." For the first time in months, maybe years, Nathan laughed. Not a polite smile. A real, chest-deep laugh that startled even him. "A sticker and a hug? That's quite a deal." Sophie grinned. "So, you'll do it?" Nathan hesitated. He didn't do kids. He didn't do feelings. But something in her voice cracked through the cold wall he'd built around himself. "Just for one day," he said finally. Sophie squealed, jumped, and wrapped her arms around his legs before he could react. He froze, then slowly placed a hand on her small back. And for a brief moment, he forgot who he was supposed to be. Across the street, the diner door flew open. "Sophie," a woman's voice shouted, sharp, frantic, and full of panic. Sophie turned, smiling. "That's my mom." Nathan stood as the woman ran toward them, apron still on, hair tied messily, eyes wide with fear. She looked like she'd been through 1,000 hard days, and kept going anyway. "Sophie Brooks, what did I tell you about running off?" "I didn't run." Sophie protested. "I just found someone nice." The woman turned to Nathan, chest heaving. "I'm so sorry, she's not supposed to?" Nathan raised a hand. "It's all right. She just wanted to ask me something." "Ask you what?" Sophie grabbed her mother's hand and smiled proudly. "He's gonna be my pretend daddy for school." The woman froze. "I'm sorry, what?" "He said yes," Sophie said, squeezing Nathan's hand. The woman looked from her daughter to this stranger in an expensive coat, and back again. "You said yes?" Nathan nodded calmly. "Apparently, I'll be attending a school event tomorrow." The woman exhaled, still catching her breath. "I don't even know your name." "Nathan," he said softly. Nathan Cole. She blinked. The name was familiar. Everyone in Chicago knew that name. And you are? Lila, she said slowly. Lila Brooks. Sophie's mom. And just like that, 3 lives that were never meant to cross collided in the middle of a windy park, all because a little girl wanted someone to clap for her. For 5 years, Lila Brooks had survived on 3 things: coffee, courage, and whatever was left of her hope. Her life wasn't glamorous. Not even close. She worked double shifts at Allie's Diner, a corner cafe with flickering lights and an old jukebox that hadn't worked since the Obama years. Every morning, she tied her hair back, slipped on her faded apron, and told herself, one day things will get easier. They hadn't. But she had Sophie. And for Lila, that was reason enough to keep breathing. When she ran out of the diner and saw her daughter talking to a stranger, a man in a tailored coat and $1,000 shoes, her heart nearly stopped. You don't see people like that sitting on park benches across from cheap diners, unless they're lost or broken. She rushed across the street, breath sharp in the cold. Sophie! The moment she saw the man's calm expression and heard her daughter say, "He's gonna be my pretend daddy," something inside her twisted. After Nathan introduced himself, Lila crossed her arms. "Mr. Cole, I appreciate whatever kindness you showed her, but she's got a wild imagination." Nathan gave a small nod. "She's also persuasive." "I'm sure she is. But she doesn't need someone to clap for her?" Nathan finished gently. Lila blinked. His tone wasn't mocking. It was quiet. Understanding. "She told you about the school thing?" "She did." "And you said yes?" "I did." Lila rubbed her temples. "Look, we've done fine on our own. She doesn't have a father, and that's okay," Nathan said softly. "She told me that too." "Then you understand why this can't." "Ms. Brooks," he interrupted, "I'm not trying to interfere." She asked and I agreed. That's all. His voice was even, respectful, the kind of calm that made people listen. Lila studied him, clean-cut, too polished, too out of place. But there was something else behind his eyes, a kind of tired that money couldn't fix. "Why would you do that?" she finally asked. Nathan looked down at Sophie, who was now humming to herself and drawing patterns in the dirt with her sneaker. "Because she asked without expecting anything," he said. "And I realized nobody's done that in a long time." Lila swallowed hard. She didn't know what to say to that. "You can talk to her teacher," Nathan continued. "If you're not comfortable, I'll stay away." Sophie looked up, frowning. "Mommy, no." He already said yes. Lila sighed, the fight in her voice softening. "Sophie, go inside and finish your coloring, please." Sophie pouted, then skipped across the street toward the diner. Lila turned back to Nathan. "You really want to go through with this?" "If you'll let me." "You have no idea what you're signing up for." "Maybe I don't," he admitted. "But maybe that's a good thing." For the first time, a faint smile crossed her lips, quick, unplanned. "All right," she said finally. "If you want to clap for her, you show up for rehearsal tomorrow. After that, we'll see." Nathan nodded. "Deal." And when he smiled back, it wasn't the confident smile of a man used to getting what he wanted. It was quiet, unsure, human. Lila walked back toward the diner, every part of her brain screaming that she just made a mistake. But when she saw Sophie sitting by the window, coloring a picture of 3 stick figures, 2 tall, 1 small, she couldn't bring herself to erase the hope in that drawing. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a mistake at all. Later that night, after Sophie fell asleep on the couch, Lila sat at the tiny kitchen table, staring at her bills. Her mind kept circling back to the man from the park, Nathan Cole. She'd seen his name before, on headlines, business magazines, those 30 under 30 geniuses articles. What was a man like that doing sitting alone in a public park? And why did he say yes so easily? She told herself it didn't matter. It was one day, one school event, nothing more. But deep down, a small voice whispered that her life was about to change. Not because of who Nathan was, but because of what her daughter had seen in him when no one else did. Nathan Cole's penthouse was the kind of place people dreamed about, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, A skyline view that could stop you in your tracks. But inside, it felt empty. The walls were white, spotless, cold. Everything had its place, not because Nathan liked things clean, but because chaos made him remember. He poured himself a glass of whiskey, staring out at the glittering towers of downtown Chicago. He could see his company's logo glowing from the top of one of them, Cole Technologies. His empire. His fortress. Once upon a time, it had all meant something. Now it was just noise. On the shelf near the window sat a single photograph. A woman laughing, wind in her hair, sunlight caught on her face. Elena. The woman he'd almost married. The one he'd lost 3 years ago in a car accident that had turned his world into static. After that, Nathan buried himself in work. Mergers, deals, expansion, anything to fill the silence. He'd stopped talking to friends. Stopped going out. He'd learned how to function without feeling. Until a little girl with pink ribbons asked him to clap for her. He set the glass down untouched. His reflection stared back at him in the window. Tired eyes, jaw set, the faintest trace of something he hadn't seen in years. Softness. He shook his head, trying to brush it off. It was one day. One small favor. That was all. But his mind wouldn't let it go. The sound of her tiny voice. The way she hugged his legs like she'd known him forever. "Sir, could you be my daddy?" The words echoed in his head like a bell that wouldn't stop ringing. The next morning, his assistant, Camille, entered his office at headquarters with a folder full of contracts. "You're supposed to be in the board meeting in 10, sir." "Cancel it," Nathan said, flipping through an email from the elementary school Sophie attended. Camille blinked. "Cancel it? Sir, this is the merger." "I said cancel it." She hesitated, then nodded. She'd worked for him long enough to know when not to argue. Still, curiosity got the best of her. "Is everything okay, Mr. Cole?" Nathan paused, then smiled faintly. "I'm going to a rehearsal." Camille frowned. What?" "Something important." He closed his laptop, grabbed his coat, and left before she could say another word. Outside, the city was alive. People rushing to catch trains, taxis honking, street vendors shouting over the wind. Nathan walked with purpose, but not toward a boardroom this time. He was heading to Westbridge Elementary. When he arrived, the sound hit him first. Laughter, chatter, kids running down hallways, their voices bouncing off painted lockers. It was chaos, but the warm kind. The teacher, Mrs. Ramirez, spotted him at the door. "Can I help you, sir?" Nathan cleared his throat. "I'm here for Sophie Brooks. She asked me to be her guest for the Father's Day program." Mrs. Ramirez's face softened. "Oh, Sophie. Yes, she's been telling everyone about you." "She has?" he asked almost shyly. "Every 5 minutes," the teacher chuckled. She said her dad, well, her pretend dad, was rich, tall, and kind of quiet but probably nice once you smile. Nathan couldn't help but laugh. "She's not wrong." "They're rehearsing now," the teacher said. "You can sit in the back." He stepped into the gymnasium, wooden floors, paper stars taped to walls, the smell of crayons and glue. Sophie stood on a small stage with a group of kids, all wearing paper crowns and cardboard wings. When she spotted him, her eyes lit up. "You came," she squealed, running off the stage and throwing her arms around him. Nathan crouched down. "I said I would, didn't I?" She grinned. "Mommy said you probably wouldn't." "Then I guess I proved her wrong." From across the room, Lila stood by the bleachers, arms crossed, watching every move. Her eyes were sharp, like she was studying a test she wasn't sure she wanted to pass. But when Sophie laughed, really laughed, Lila's expression softened, just for a moment. Nathan stayed for the whole rehearsal. He clapped, he smiled, and when Sophie messed up a line, he whispered encouragement from the front row. For a man who had spent years surrounded by silence, the sound of a child's laughter filled something in him he didn't even realize was missing. And for the first time since Elena's death, Nathan Cole felt alive. As the rehearsal ended, Sophie waved from the stage. "Don't forget. You promised to clap extra loud at the real one." Nathan chuckled. "I'll bring earplugs for everyone else." Lila approached him slowly. You really showed up, she said. I said I would. Most people don't. I'm not most people. She tilted her head, arms folded. Yeah. I'm starting to see that. And as Sophie ran up between them, holding both their hands, one small, one strong, it was clear something new had begun. None of them knew what it was yet. But all three could feel it. A connection. A spark. A chance. The next day, the gym at Westbridge Elementary was a storm of noise. Folding chairs scraped against the floor, paper stars fell off walls, and a teacher somewhere was begging second graders to please, for the love of crayons, stay in line. But for Sophie Brooks, today was magic. Her tutu sparkled, her sneakers blinked with every step, and she'd been telling everyone within earshot. My dad's coming today. He's tall and he claps really loud. Every time she said it, Lila's heart clenched. She stood by the wall, arms crossed, biting her lip. She knew it was pretend, she knew it, but seeing her daughter's eyes light up that way made her chest ache. When Nathan finally walked in, heads turned. Even in jeans and a dark sweater, he looked like he didn't belong in a school gym, like he'd accidentally stepped out of a magazine cover and into a PTA meeting. You're late, Sophie said, hands on her hips. Traffic, he said with mock seriousness. I had to fight 3 taxis and a parade of pigeons. Sophie giggled. You made it though. Wouldn't miss it, Nathan said, kneeling so he was eye level with her. You ready to be the star of the show? She puffed up her chest. I was born ready. Lila tried not to smile. The man was smooth, too smooth, but the way he talked to her daughter wasn't fake. It wasn't the kind of sweet that felt forced. It was gentle. Mrs. Ramirez clapped her hands. All right, everyone. Let's start with the introductions. The kids lined up across the stage, and one by one, they were supposed to walk to the microphone and say their line. Hi, my name is ____, and this is my dad. Sophie's turn came near the end. Nathan sat in the front row, looking both proud and out of his depth. When Mrs. Ramirez gave her the nod, Sophie stepped forward, tiny but confident. Hi, my name is Sophie, she said, her voice loud enough to echo. And this is my daddy. His name is Mr. Nathan Cole, and he's the best clapper ever. Laughter rippled through the room. Nathan chuckled, his face warming. The teacher gave him a nod, and he stood to wave. But then, something unexpected happened. Sophie whispered something to Mrs. Ramirez, who smiled and handed Nathan a cue card. Your turn, she said. Nathan blinked. My turn. Sophie grinned. You have to say your part. He looked down at the card. The words were simple. This is my daughter, and I'm proud of her. But he didn't read them. Instead, he looked at Sophie, standing there, smiling at him like he was her whole world, and something inside him broke loose. He stepped closer to the mic, and his voice came out softer than he expected. This is Sophie, he said. And she's the bravest kid I've ever met. She doesn't just shine, she makes everyone else shine when she's around. The gym went quiet. Even Mrs. Ramirez looked up from her clipboard. Lila felt her throat tighten. She hadn't expected that. Not from a stranger. Not from anyone. Sophie's smile grew so big it could have lit the whole gym. That was good, she whispered to him as she hopped off the stage. You didn't even need the card. Nathan smiled, a real one this time. Guess I had the best teacher. After rehearsal, the kids spilled out into the hallway, buzzing with excitement. Sophie ran to show her mom the little paper star she'd been given for participation. Look, Mommy, I got one. Mr. Nathan said he'd put it on his fridge. Lila raised a brow. You have a fridge big enough for art projects, Mr. Cole? Nathan chuckled. I can make space. Careful, Lila teased. She'll hold you to that. I hope she does, he said quietly. The words made Lila pause. There was no arrogance there. No pity. Just sincerity. As they walked out of the school, Sophie skipped ahead, twirling her paper star in the sunlight. Nathan and Lila followed, side by side. You're not what I expected, Lila said suddenly. And what did you expect? Some rich guy doing a good deed for karma points. And now? She hesitated. Now I don't know what to think. That's fair, Nathan said. I don't really know what I'm doing either. Lila laughed softly, a sound she hadn't made in a long time. You know, that's the first honest thing I've heard from a man in years. Then maybe it's a good start. They stopped at the diner. Lila turned to him, awkward now that the moment was over. Thank you, she said quietly. For today. It was my pleasure. Sophie looked up at both of them, her little hand slipping into his. Are you coming back tomorrow? Nathan looked down at her, those big hopeful eyes staring up like the world depended on his answer. Of course, he said softly. I'll be there. And as he walked away, Lila watched him go, the wind tugging at his coat, the city lights starting to flicker on behind him. She didn't know it yet, but that promise would be the one thing both of them needed most. Because for Nathan Cole, a man who'd forgotten how to feel, and Lila Brooks, a woman who'd forgotten how to trust, Sophie Brooks had just reminded them both what love looked like. The city was glowing that night, streetlights flickering on, the sound of cars blending with laughter from passing strangers. Lila hadn't planned on seeing Nathan again that evening. But life, apparently, had other plans. She was wiping down the counter at Ellie's diner when Sophie came bouncing out of the back booth, her little backpack flapping behind her. Mommy! Look who's outside. Lila frowned. Sophie, I told you not to. The bell above the door chimed. And there he was. Nathan Cole, standing in the doorway, hands in his pockets, a small, unsure smile on his face. Evening, he said. Lila blinked. Did you forget something at the school? No. Wanted to make good on a promise. Sophie gasped dramatically. He came back. You told her you'd come back? Lila asked, half amused, half suspicious. She asked if I'd see her again, Nathan said simply. I didn't want to lie. Lila shook her head, trying not to smile. You really don't know how to say no to her, do you? Not yet. Dangerous answer, Lila muttered. Sophie tugged Nathan's sleeve. Mommy, can we eat with him? Please? Just once. Lila sighed, caught between her daughter's pleading eyes and the stranger who looked more human every time she saw him. Fine, she said. But no fancy restaurant stuff. Just normal food. Nathan grinned. I was thinking pizza, actually. Pizza? Lila repeated, pretending to be surprised. Pizza? Hey, he said, hand over his heart, I'm capable of being normal sometimes. That made her laugh. And it had been a while since Lila Brooks had laughed like that, without worrying about who was watching or what was next. They ended up at Tony's Slice and Soda, a little hole-in-the-wall joint 2 blocks down. Torn booths, flickering neon lights, the smell of melted cheese and garlic that made your stomach growl on arrival. Nathan looked hilariously out of place in his tailored coat, but he didn't seem to care. They ordered a large pepperoni, 1 personal cheese for Sophie, and 2 root beers. Root beer? Lila teased. Your daughter said it's mandatory, Nathan said, dead serious. Sophie giggled, dipping a breadstick in sauce. He listens good. Better than most grown-ups I know, Lila said softly. The booth was small, so Nathan sat beside Sophie, while Lila sat across from them. For the first time in years, it didn't feel like she was on one side of the world and everyone else on the other. So, Lila said, resting her chin on her hand, what does a man like you do when he's not saving little girls from school embarrassment? Nathan smiled. I run a company. You run it. Built it from scratch, he said casually. But don't worry, I'm on vacation from being important. And you picked my diner's park bench for your vacation? It was quiet, he said. And real. Lila studied him for a long second. The honesty in his tone caught her off guard. Most people who have what you have don't look for real. Most people don't know how lonely success feels, Nathan said quietly. The table went still for a beat, the kind of silence that isn't awkward, just heavy. Then Sophie broke it. Want to see my art? She asked, pulling a napkin from the holder. She grabbed a crayon from her backpack and started scribbling. This is me, this is mommy, and, she squinted up at Nathan, you can be this one. She drew a tall stick figure with a big smile and tiny glasses. You gave me glasses? Nathan asked. Yeah. You look smart. Good observation, Lila said, smirking. And this one's our house, Sophie added, drawing a big square with a crooked door. It's got a roof that doesn't leak. Nathan smiled sadly. Nice upgrade. You can put this on your fridge, Sophie said, sliding the napkin toward him. Nathan folded it carefully, like it was made of gold. I'll keep it safe. She's gonna check, you know, Lila warned. Good, Nathan said. Keeps me accountable. When the pizza arrived, Sophie dove in, sauce on her cheeks, laughing between bites. Nathan joined her, abandoning his polished image, folding his slice in half like a pro. You're not half bad at this, Lila said, sipping her root beer. What, eating? No. Being around people. He grinned. I'm retraining. It shows. The three of them lingered long after their plates were empty. Sophie fell asleep halfway through a story about dinosaurs, her head resting on Nathan's arm. Lila watched him, the way he shifted gently so she could stay comfortable, how his expression softened in a way she'd never seen before. You're good with her, Lila said quietly. Nathan looked up. She makes it easy. She doesn't usually let people in this fast. Then maybe she sees something I don't. Lila's lips parted, but she didn't answer. The only sound was the faint hum of the jukebox and Sophie's slow breathing. After a while, Nathan whispered, You ever think maybe life gives you second chances in strange ways? I used to, Lila said softly. Then I stopped waiting for them. Nathan looked down at Sophie, this small, fearless kid who dragged both of them out of their own shadows, and smiled faintly. Maybe you didn't have to wait, he said. Maybe yours just showed up wearing light-up sneakers. Lila laughed, a quiet, broken laugh that turned into a real one. She didn't notice the tear that slipped down her cheek, and Nathan didn't say a word about it. He just smiled, softly, and handed her a napkin. That night, as they walked home, Lila watched Sophie cling to Nathan's hand, talking half asleep about her school show. And for a moment, Lila let herself imagine it. A life where nights like this weren't pretend. Where laughter came easy. Where her daughter had someone to clap for her. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't just a favor anymore. Maybe this was the beginning of something real. The morning sun hit Chicago different that day. The streets looked cleaner. The air felt lighter. Even the city, usually too busy to notice anything, seemed to pause. It was the day of the Westbridge Elementary Father's Day program, and Sophie Brooks was ready. Her outfit had been picked out for a week, a soft lavender dress with a sparkly sash that said, My daddy's my hero. She had no idea her mom had spent the last of her tips on that sash, or how many hours Lila had worked to make sure her daughter didn't feel left out again. Lila brushed Sophie's hair in front of the mirror. You nervous? No, Sophie said with the kind of confidence only kids have. He said he'd come. I'm not scared. Lila smiled, her heart both full and afraid. Sometimes grown-ups get busy, sweetheart. He won't. That certainty in her daughter's voice shook her, because she wanted to believe it too. By noon, the school gym was packed. Parents filled folding chairs, phones ready, everyone talking over one another. The air buzzed with pride and caffeine. Lila stood backstage with Sophie and the other kids, trying to keep her own nerves in check. Then the doors at the far end of the gym opened, and just like that, the noise around her faded. Nathan Cole walked in. No suit, no bodyguard, no trace of the billionaire image that once defined him. Just dark jeans, a soft sweater, and a small bouquet of sunflowers in his hand. He spotted Lila instantly. Their eyes met, a silent exchange that said everything. He handed her a coffee as he passed. You looked like you could use this. Lila blinked, half smiling. You remembered. Couldn't forget. Then Sophie's voice echoed through the gym. You came. She bolted from backstage and wrapped her arms around him, her ribbons bouncing. Of course I came, Nathan said softly. Wouldn't miss the big debut. You brought flowers? Only for stars, he said. Lila tried to look away, but her throat burned. That man, the one who didn't belong in this world of glitter glue and paper crowns, somehow fit here perfectly. When the lights dimmed, the chaos turned to stillness. The music began. One by one, the The kids took their turns. And then it was Sophie's moment. She stepped onto the stage, tiny but fierce, her silver shoes catching the spotlight. The teacher stepped to the mic. Our next performer has a special guest who would like to introduce her. Lila froze. What? Nathan stood. The teacher smiled and gestured for him to come up. He walked slowly to the microphone, nerves flickering for the first time. His voice was calm, but the tremor underneath it was real. This is Sophie, he began. And if you've ever met her, you already know she's the brightest thing in any room. She's funny, brave, and she believes in magic. And now I think I do too. Laughter and soft applause rippled through the gym. He smiled faintly. She asked me to clap really loud today. So if you hear thunder, that's just me doing my job. The crowd laughed again, and Sophie beamed. As Nathan stepped back, Sophie gave him a quick wink before she began her little song. Off-key, loud, but so full of joy that nobody cared. Lila watched from the side of the stage, tears slipping freely down her face. For once, she didn't bother hiding them. When the song ended, Sophie looked straight at Nathan. He was already standing, clapping harder than anyone in the room. The sound echoed through the gym, full, proud, alive. And for Sophie Brooks, that sound meant everything. After the performance, the gym exploded with laughter, chatter, hugs, and cookies. Kids swarmed their parents, showing off paper stars and plastic medals. Sophie found Nathan first. Did I do good? He knelt, smiling. You were perfect. You clapped loud, she said proudly. I told you I would. Lila joined them, eyes red but smiling. You really went all in, huh? Nathan looked at her. Wouldn't have meant anything if I didn't. Sophie looked between them. Can we go get ice cream? Real ice cream, like families do. Lila hesitated. The word family hung in the air like a secret. Nathan nodded. Ice cream sounds perfect. Sophie squealed. With sprinkles. Of course, Nathan said, smiling at Lila. Sprinkles are mandatory. And just like that, they walked out of the school together. Not as strangers anymore, not even as stand-ins, but as something new. Something fragile. Something real. For the first time in years, Lila wasn't walking alone. For the first time since Elena's death, Nathan wasn't walking in silence. And for the first time in her short little life, Sophie had someone beside her who clapped like he meant it. As they stepped into the golden afternoon, Sophie looked up at them and said softly, You know what, Mommy? I think he's gonna stay. And Lila, heart full, eyes wet, whispered back, Yeah, baby. I think he just might. The night air over Chicago carried that soft hum only the city knows, distant traffic, laughter somewhere down the block, and the faint buzz of neon signs flickering above half-empty streets. The Father's Day event had ended hours ago, but the feeling lingered. Sophie had sung her heart out. Nathan had clapped until his palms stung. And Lila couldn't stop replaying the image of him standing there, proud, smiling, completely out of place, yet somehow, exactly where he belonged. The three of them ended up back where it all began, Ellie's diner. Sophie was half asleep in the booth, a half-eaten ice cream sundae melting beside her. Sprinkles everywhere, on the table, the floor, her dress. She looked peaceful. Lila sat across from Nathan, both of them quiet for a long time. The jukebox hummed faintly in the corner, playing some old soul song about second chances. She's out cold, Nathan said softly. She earned it, Lila smiled. She's been buzzing since this morning. You made her whole week, you know that? Nathan looked at Sophie, her small hand curled against the seat, her head resting on her backpack, and his expression softened. She made mine, he said quietly. Lila studied him for a moment. You really don't do this kind of thing often, do you? What, hang out with kids? Hang out with anyone. Nathan smiled faintly, eyes still on Sophie. You're right. I used to. But life happened. Life happens to everyone, Lila said. The difference is some of us can't afford to hide from it. Her tone wasn't sharp, just honest. Nathan nodded slowly. You're right again. For a moment, the silence stretched between them, heavy but comfortable. Then Lila asked the question that had been sitting in her chest for days. Who was she? Nathan looked up. Who? The woman in your eyes, she said softly. Every time Sophie talks, every time she laughs, there's this look, like she reminds you of someone. Nathan leaned back, exhaled. Her name was Elena. Lila didn't interrupt. We were engaged, he said. She died 3 years ago. Car accident. I was out of town for a conference when it happened. I came home to nothing. Lila's throat tightened. Nathan. After that, he continued quietly, I stopped feeling much of anything. I built walls. I buried myself in work. It was easier that way, to care about profits, not people. People break you. Numbers don't. He gave a small, humorless smile. Until this little tornado in a pink hoodie decided she needed someone to clap for her. Lila chuckled softly, blinking away tears. Yeah, she has a way of forcing people to care. She does, Nathan said, smiling again, this time with warmth. I think she saved me from myself. The words hung in the air. Vulnerable. And you, he asked gently. Who did you stop trusting? Lila looked down, tracing the rim of her coffee cup. Sophie's dad. He left before she was born. I spent years thinking I wasn't enough, that I'd done something wrong. Nathan's voice was low. You didn't. Took me a long time to realize that. And now? Now I work, I pay bills, and I keep my little girl happy, Lila said with a tired laugh. Dreams are expensive. Hope is even more expensive. But she's worth every penny. Nathan's gaze softened. She's lucky to have you. Lila looked up. I used to tell myself I didn't need anyone. I told Sophie that too. That it was just us against the world. But tonight... Her voice cracked, and she quickly looked away. Tonight, I watched her look at you like you hung the moon. And for the first time, I didn't feel jealous. I just felt grateful. Nathan's throat tightened. Lila. Don't, she said, holding up a hand. I'm not saying anything crazy. I see how she looks at you. And I see how you look at her. And maybe we all needed this more than we realized. Nathan leaned forward, resting his hands on the table. His voice was steady, gentle. I don't make promises lightly, he said. But I want to be part of her life. Not for a day. Not for show. For real. Lila stared at him, searching his face for any trace of pity, ego, or games. But there was none. Just sincerity. You don't have to save us, she whispered. I'm not trying to, he said. I'm just trying not to walk away from something that finally feels right. Lila exhaled slowly, tears welling. You have no idea how terrifying that sounds. Maybe, Nathan said softly. But maybe being terrified means it matters. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of understanding, of pain, of something beginning to heal. Sophie stirred, mumbling in her sleep. Nathan smiled and gently brushed a stray curl from her forehead. She's going to wake up soon, Lila said, voice trembling. And she's going to ask if you'll come back. Then I'll tell her the truth, Nathan said. Which is that I'm not going anywhere. And just like that, the words that Lila had been afraid to hope for finally found her. She looked at him for a long moment, then whispered, Don't break her heart. Nathan met her gaze, steady, sincere. I wouldn't dare, he said. Outside, the rain began to fall, soft, steady, washing the city clean. Inside, at that tiny diner on 5th Street, 3 people sat in the glow of a neon sign that read open all night. And for the first time in years, so were their hearts. The rain that night washed the whole city clean. By morning, the streets glistened, puddles caught the sunrise like tiny mirrors. And in a quiet apartment on the south side, a 6-year-old girl woke up humming. Mommy, Sophie whispered, shaking Lila's shoulder, is he coming today? Lila blinked herself awake, half smiling. Who, baby? Mr. Nathan. He said he'd come. Lila hesitated, remembering his words from the diner. I'm not going anywhere. She wanted to believe him. She really did. Before she could answer, there was a knock at the door. Sophie gasped and sprinted to open it. Nathan stood there, rain-damp hair, a bag of groceries in one arm, and a lopsided grin. I figured pancakes taste better when someone else flips them, he said. Sophie squealed. You cook? Barely, Nathan admitted, stepping inside. But I can follow instructions and not burn the kitchen, most of the time. Lila leaned against the doorway, arms folded but smiling. You really are full of surprises. You have no idea, he said, unpacking flour and eggs. The apartment filled with the smell of butter and laughter. Sophie insisted on stirring the batter. Nathan showed her how to pour just enough, not too much. Like that? She asked. Exactly like that, he said. Perfect. And for a little while, it didn't matter who he was or how much money he had. He was just Nathan, the man flipping pancakes in a small kitchen with two people who made him feel alive again. After breakfast, they took a walk through the neighborhood park, the same one where it all began. The trees were dripping from the rain, the bench still damp. Sophie ran ahead, chasing pigeons. Nathan and Lila followed slowly, steps in sync. You know, Lila said quietly, when she first asked you to be her dad for a day, I thought it was crazy. Nathan smiled. It probably was. But she saw something in you I didn't. What's that? Someone who needed family just as much as she did. Nathan's eyes softened. Maybe she saw right through me. They stopped at the old bench. The one where it started. Nathan brushed the rain off the seat and nodded toward it. Mind if we sit? Lila sat beside him, folding her hands in her lap. The air was cool, quiet. I keep thinking about something you said, Nathan murmured. That dreams are expensive. They are, Lila said. But the best ones don't cost money. He turned to her. Then maybe this one's affordable. Lila laughed softly. And what dream is that? A small one, Nathan said. Breakfasts that burn. Late-night cartoons. Someone running to the door when I knock. A reason to show up. Lila's breath caught. You mean? I mean I don't want to pretend anymore. For a long moment, she couldn't speak. The city moved around them, cars passing, dogs barking, wind rustling through wet leaves, but all she heard was the steady rhythm of her own heart. Then Sophie came running back, arms wide. Mommy! Look. She held up 3 dandelions. One for each of us. Nathan smiled, taking one. What do we do with them? Make a wish. Sophie said. Lila met Nathan's gaze. They both closed their eyes. Sophie blew first, scattering white fluff into the wind. Then Nathan whispered, Done. What did you wish for? Sophie asked. Nathan looked at Lila. I think it already came true. Lila's eyes glistened. You know, Mr. Cole, for someone who says he doesn't make promises lightly. Yeah? He asked. You just made one anyway. Nathan smiled. Then I'll spend the rest of my life keeping it. The sun broke through the clouds then, warm light spilling across the park, across the bench, across 3 people who were no longer strangers. Sophie twirled between them, laughing, her sneakers flashing as she shouted, Come on, Daddy. Race you to the swings. Nathan laughed, running after her. Lila followed, watching them, the man who once sat here alone and the little girl who refused to let him stay that way. Some stories don't end with fireworks. Some end quietly, with sunlight, laughter, and the sound of hope returning. And on that Chicago morning, for Lila Brooks, Sophie, and Nathan Cole, it wasn't the end at all. It was a new beginning. And that, my friends, was another story from Tales by Shaldre. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please take a moment to subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who loves good stories. It takes time and passion to create each tale, so your support truly means the world. Once again, kindly subscribe to Tales by Shaldre and tap that notification bell so you never miss any episode. Every click helps this channel and every view inspires the next story. This is Shaldre. Until next time with another tale worth telling.